My name is Laura, and if someone had told me a year ago that I would end up cheating on my husband, I would never have believed it. I am not the type of person who does such things, or at least I wasn't. I have always been faithful, a devoted wife, but life sometimes takes us down unpredictable paths. I am not trying to justify myself, just to tell how it all happened. It was a hot summer day, and Mark, my husband, and I had gone on vacation to a seaside resort that I love. That week seemed like the perfect opportunity to relax after months of stress and incessant work. However, from the very first days, I had noticed that something was wrong between us. The passion that once united us had faded, and every conversation seemed forced. It was as if we were together only out of habit. On the second day, while Mark was sleeping in the shade, I decided to take a walk along the shore. I needed to clear my mind, to feel the cool water on my skin and the sun warming me. As I walked, I noticed two men on the other side of the beach. They were young, athletic, and laughing loudly together, as if nothing in the world could bother them. One of them, the one with dark hair and intense eyes, noticed me immediately and smiled. His gaze was magnetic, and for some inexplicable reason, I felt attracted to him. There was no need for many words. Everything felt extremely natural. I continued my walk, but I felt that they were watching me. I turned around and saw that they were approaching. "Hi," said one of them, the taller one with slightly tanned skin. "Are you here alone?" I smiled, but my heart was pounding. "No, I'm here with my husband," I replied, trying to quickly dispel any suspicion. "Ah, I see," said the other with a mocking smile. "But it seems like he's distracted." I didn't know what had driven me to continue the conversation. Perhaps it was the attention I was receiving, the desire to feel desired after so long. I introduced myself, and they introduced themselves in turn, Andrew and Luke. They didn't hide the fact that they were there on vacation to have fun and seek adventures. Talking with them was easy, carefree, the sun, the warm sand, the sound of the waves, everything seemed to favor that light-hearted atmosphere. They invited me to take a dip with them. I hesitated for a moment, but then looked towards the umbrella where Mark was still sleeping soundly. Just a dip, nothing more, I told myself. We entered the water, and I immediately felt invigorated. Luke began to play, splashing me and gently supporting me with his arms. The physical contact was light, but the warmth of his skin against mine made me shiver inside. I turned towards him, and for a moment, we looked into each other's eyes. It was as if the rest of the world had disappeared. My heart was pounding, and before I realized it, his lips were on mine. It was a brief but intense kiss. I felt a surge of adrenaline rush through my body. I immediately pulled away, confused and frightened by what I had just done. "I can't," I whispered, almost trying to convince myself, but the two of them seemed to understand my inner conflict. Andrew approached again, this time closer. "You don't have to do it if you don't want to," he said gently. But the way he looked at me made me feel vulnerable. It was as if my thoughts were transparent to him. I felt torn. On one side there was the growing guilt, and the thought of Mark sleeping unaware under the umbrella. On the other side, there was a desire I hadn't felt in years, a sensation of being alive and desired like never before. "Just today, just this once," I repeated in my mind, almost trying to justify what was about to happen. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood there. with the water surrounding us and the sun beginning to set on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Andrew and Luke looked at me with complicit eyes, almost as if they already knew what was going to happen. And perhaps deep down in my heart, I knew it too. We emerged from the water, laughing, as if everything were still light and innocent. But the weight of temptation was there, present in my every movement. We walked back to the loungers they had rented, far from the rest of the crowded beach. Their area was more secluded, hidden behind a row of palm trees, as if chosen specifically for situations like this. I looked around once more, searching for Mark in the crowd, but I didn't see him. His absence almost seemed like a sign, an invitation. Andrew took a bottle of wine from their cooler and poured me a glass. "Just a sip to relax you," he said, his eyes still seeking mine. I accepted the glass, trying to calm the tumult of thoughts crowding my mind. With every sip, the guilt seemed to fade and the desire grew stronger. Luke sat next to me, his athletic body still glistening from the sea water. "You really fit in well with us, you know," he said with a mischievous smile. I felt the heat rise to my cheeks, but I said nothing. His penetrating gaze seemed to read my thoughts, and without warning he leaned in closer, placing a gentle hand on my thigh. A shiver ran through my body. I had never felt like this before, desired, sought after, completely out of control. My mind screamed to stop, but my body responded differently. I was overwhelmed by conflicting emotions. I turned to Andrew, who was still sipping his wine, watching me with that enigmatic smile of his. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to," he had told me earlier, but now it seemed they both knew I would give in, and in the end I did. Luke was the first to kiss me, this time with a different intensity, deeper. His lips were warm and his hand moved up my leg, stopping at my inner thigh. I completely lost myself in that kiss, forgetting everything, even my husband's name. Andrew leaned in, placing a hand on my back and starting to kiss my neck. It was an overwhelming sensation, two men desiring me at the same time, touching me, making me feel alive in a way I had never experienced. I found myself lying between them on the lounger, their bodies surrounding me, their hands exploring every inch of my skin. Andrew kissed my lips while Luke tended to my body, with a precision and passion I had never imagined. The warmth of the sun mingled with the heat of their touch, and I lost myself completely in that moment. I don't know how long it lasted, maybe minutes, maybe hours. Every moment seemed stretched, every sensation amplified. The guilt continued to knock on the door of my conscience, but I ignored it, immersed in a whirlwind of pleasure and adrenaline. I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't stop. I had completely let go, allowing my deepest desires to take control. When it was over, we lay there for a while, breathing heavily and looking at the sky now tinged with purple. Reality slowly returned, like a slow but unstoppable wave. The weight of my actions began to sink in. I got up, collecting my swimsuit and trying to fix myself as best as I could. Andrew and Luke looked at me with a mix of satisfaction and understanding, but said nothing. They knew it would be the only time. "I hope you had fun," Luke said with a light smile. I nodded, unable to find the right words. I felt empty, as if a whirlwind had swept everything away, leaving me alone with the weight of my actions. I walked slowly toward the umbrella, where Mark was waiting for me, still absorbed in his world, unaware of everything that had happened. I found him sitting, looking at me with a relaxed smile. "You've been gone for a while," he said. There was no suspicion in his voice, only love and trust. I sat next to him, unable to look him in the eyes. The weight of betrayal became unbearable, and suddenly I realized what I had done. I had ruined everything for a moment of fleeting pleasure, and now there was no way to turn back. My life, my relationship with Mark, everything seemed to hang by a thin thread, ready to snap at the slightest confession. I looked at the sea, searching for an answer, but all I heard was the sound of the waves, indifferent to what I had just done. Mark looked at me, relaxed, unaware of the storm inside me. "Did you get a little extra sun?" he asked with a faint, almost playful smile. I tried to smile back, but I couldn't meet his gaze. "I was just lost in the scenery," I lied, trying to make my tone sound natural, even though every word seemed to choke me. It was true I had gotten lost, but not in the way I wanted him to believe. The beach around us was still lively, children laughing, the sound of waves, the distant music from the bar on the shore. Everything continued as if nothing had changed. But I felt that inside me something had broken. I had crossed a line I never thought I would, and now I wondered how I could keep living with that secret. "I made a reservation for tonight," Mark said, taking my hand. His touch made me flinch slightly. "It's going to be a special evening." A knot tightened in my throat. How could he be so serene, so in love, while I felt the distance between us growing with every second? I couldn't look at him the same way anymore, yet I couldn't tell him the truth. I couldn't face the pain in his eyes, the betrayal I'd see reflected on his face. "I can't wait," I replied, though inside I knew that dinner would be hell. Every moment spent beside him would remind me of what I'd done, and every glance he gave me would be a painful reminder of my betrayal. We walked along the beach at sunset, hand in hand. Mark kept talking about the restaurant, the food, our future vacations, but I couldn't focus on anything he said. My thoughts were still trapped a few hours before when I had allowed myself to be swept away by that madness. Andrew and Luke, their faces, their hands, their words, still echoed in my mind. The memory was vivid, etched into my skin as if every touch had left a lasting imprint. After the walk, we returned to the hotel to get ready for dinner. I entered the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. My reflection felt foreign, as if the woman with the tousled hair and guilty eyes was no longer the same Laura as before. What was I becoming? Why had I let this happen? As I brushed my hair, a voice inside me whispered, "There's still time to stop." But stop what? I had already betrayed my husband. And yet that thought kept circling in my mind. Maybe there was still a way out. Maybe if I forgot it, if I pretended it had never happened, I could take back control of my life and make everything seem normal again. Dinner was exactly as I expected. Torment. Mark was affectionate, attentive, doing everything he could to make me laugh. And every time I met his eyes, the pain inside me grew. I couldn't stop thinking about what I had done. Every bite felt heavy, every laugh forced. We returned to the hotel late that night. Mark held me gently and we both lay down on the bed, me in his arms, but I felt cold inside. "I love you," he whispered before falling asleep. Those words pierced my heart. I couldn't respond. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how I could live with this secret for the rest of my life. In the days that followed, the vacation went on as if nothing had happened. Mark suspected nothing, and I pretended everything was fine. But sometimes, when we were on the beach, I'd catch a glimpse of Andrew and Luke in the distance. Each time our eyes met, guilt wrapped around me again. They never approached, as if they knew our encounter was a mistake to be left behind. And yet, I couldn't stop thinking about them. Part of me wondered if I could ever confess everything to Mark, but the truth terrified me. I was afraid of losing him, of destroying everything we had built together. So I decided to bury that secret deep in my heart, hoping time would erase it. I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Betrayal was like an invisible scar, one that would always mark my soul. Each day would be a reminder of what I had done, a fracture that divided who I used to be from who I had now become.